Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this hybrid meeting of the Communities Committee. I would remind all attendees that this meeting is being recorded and webcast live on the Council's YouTube channel. I have agreed to the attendance of some members remotely and would remind all remote attendees to mute their microphones when not speaking. For any members of the public watching, please note that all the public committee reports, including details of specific recommendations, are available on the Council's website. Members are referred to the addendum circulated yesterday in relation to item number 6. As members are aware, the information has not been published in line with standing orders and the 3 clear days. However, I am going to rule that the information be considered to ensure that members have accurate information regarding the B978 from Balumby Castle Estate to Kellis. Before we move to the agenda, there has been a deputation request submitted from Mrs. Jolly, a resident in Letham, in relation to item number 7, the introduction of no waiting at any time restrictions on the south and west sides of Dundee Road and Gardyne Street, Letham. Do members agree to hear the deputation request? Thank you. I propose that we hear that deputation immediately prior to item 7. Fiona, do we have any apologies or substitutes?
Yes, Convener, we've got apologies from Councillors Mark MacDonald, Ian McLaren and Jill Scott, and substituting is Councillors Julie Bell, George Meehan and Heather Doran.
Thank you. Do we have any declarations of interest or statements of transparency? Councillor Cowdy.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a statement of transparency in relation to item 7. I have had discussions with some constituents in Letham about the parking restrictions. I haven't expressed an opinion on them and I do intend to stay in the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Shepherd.
Thanks, Convener. Similar to Councillor Cowdy on item 7, I've spoke to residents in Letham, attended community council meetings, and I've also spoken to the key store shop owner as well. So that's a statement of transparency. I still plan to take part in the vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Cruikshank.
I'm the same as Councillor Shepherd.
Thank you. Councillor Duff.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. I'm not sure if this is absolutely necessary, but items 13, report 19/26, just a statement of transparency that I am a council appointed representative on the Montrose Basin Management Committee.
Thank you. Move on to number 3, the minutes. Minutes of the previous meeting, submit for approval as a correct record. The meeting of this committee of the 11th of November 2025. Is the minute approved? Thank you. And also item B, Arbroath Harbour Joint Consultative Committee. This is submit for noting the minutes of the meeting of the Arbroath Harbour Joint Consultative Committee of the 5th of September and the 12th of December 2025. Is that agreed? Agenda item 4 is the possible exclusion of public and press. The committee will be asked to consider in terms of Standing Order 27, number 2, whether the public and press should be excluded during consideration of item 15 so as to avoid the disclosure of information which is exempt in terms of Part 1 of Schedule 7A to the Local Government Scotland Act 1973. Do we agree to exclude the public and press? Thank you. Item number 5, Angus Council Speed Limit Strategy Review. And to introduce this is Matt Robinson.
Thank you, Convener. Good afternoon, members. This report updates members on the findings of the Angus Council Speed Limit Strategy Member Officer Working Group. It presents a revised strategy and a process for the setting of speed limits with a focus on 20 mph and rural speed limits. Section 4 of the report highlights the safety benefits of 20 mph speed limits, as well as the Scottish Government target and funding for the rollout of 20 mph speed limits. And that's very much the context with which the group was established. Section 5 of the report highlights the process through which the group went, including public consultation. It outlines that the recommendations of the group and the results of the consultation that mirrored that members did not support the rollout of 20 mph speed limits across all appropriate roads in Angus. There were concerns cited particularly around enforcement of 20 mph speed limits and funding of the rollout. I would highlight that the recommendation is inconsistent with neighbouring local authorities and with the professional view of officers. However, it does reflect the results of the consultation and the views of members of the group. Section 6 of the report sets out the proposed process and the best practice guidance which is currently in use. And that includes the recommendation for an annual committee report. I would highlight that we receive, or officers, Angus Council officers receive approximately 140 requests per year for new speed limits, and so that will have to be taken into account with future prioritisation of schemes. So it's recommended that the committee notes the findings of the Member Officer Working Group, that the committee approves a strategy of demand-based speed limit reviews based on industry best practice, and agrees to the demand-based process for setting new urban or rural speed limits outlined in the report. Online is the team leader for traffic, Andy Barnes. Andy and myself are very happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you for that. We'll move to questions and comments. Do we have any questions? Councillor Melville.
Thank you, Convener. Pleased to see that we won't be going ahead with the blanket 20 mph zones. I don't think that fits for Angus, and I'm glad that we're listening to the overwhelming opinion of the public on that. The one question that I do have, though, is around physical infrastructure, not just the setting of the speed limits themselves, but measures to enforce it. And we know that that is something that the public are particularly concerned about. Now, this is something that I've raised with colleagues who sat on the MOG. It's something I've raised with officers. But what I'm not seeing in the report is the specific detail of the thresholds that would require to be met to introduce physical infrastructure. And I was just wondering if you could give us a bit more information about that.
Thank you, Councillor Melville. So paragraphs 6.7 and 6.8 of the report, that's page 23, do highlight how existing 20 mph speed limits are proposed to be managed. So officers are very much in agreement that it's an important issue. We have a number of 20 mph speed limits across Angus, and compliance varies on those. So those paragraphs highlight the best practice guidance for how that should be managed. There are set criteria so that for different speeds observed in the 20 mph speed limit, different measures can be proposed and used to manage those speeds.
Is that okay, Councillor Melville?
I think I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of the kind of technical aspects of that, but perhaps that's something that you can provide me in writing after this.
I could maybe just expand briefly. So where we see average, so the criteria that are set in the guidance is called the 20 mph speed limits in Scotland implementation guide. It's a Transport for Scotland document. it looks at average speeds within a 20 mile an hour zone. So for speeds observed between 0 and 25 miles an hour, that is considered good compliance with no further actions necessary. For 26 to 30 miles an hour average speed, the consideration would be soft measures. So that's signage, lining, perhaps working with the community. And then speeds over 30 miles an hour average, that's where clearly there's a problem. That's where any of the soft measures can be considered, but also the harder physical infrastructure measures, the speed bumps, gateway treatments and so forth. And then there is a final option within there. If none of that is successful and it's felt that it's not appropriate, that's when the speed limit can be reversed from 20 back to 30. So that is outlined in the guidance, which is referred to in the document. Councillor Mills, I'd be happy to provide that in writing if that's helpful.
Thank you. Councillor Devine.
Thanks, Convener. In 6.4 on page 22, the first recommendation is a request for new speed limit submitted via service request, blah, blah, or petition. Now, it doesn't say to whom the petition will go. And up till now, it has been scrutiny and audit. But I wonder if it would be beneficial to have a petition to communities committee there, because all that happens is that people come along and they come to scrutiny and audit, and we are not, scrutiny and audit isn't a decision-making body, so we always have to put it to communities anyway when it's something like this. I wonder if that would be a possibility. I don't know if you need to take advice from legal or whatever.
I think Councillor Devine would have to look at the remit of the committees, because obviously that is the remit of scrutiny and audit to deal with the petitions in the first instance. But that's something officers could look at.
It may be that standing orders have to be changed, but we've changed standing orders in the past. So hopefully, I think it would be better for the communities who come along. And it would certainly save us in scrutiny and audit, kind of frustrating them. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Devine. Councillor Proctor.
Thank you, Convener. Just to follow on about the policing of the 20 mile per hour limits. I read what you've said in the answer that you gave Councillor Melville. Appreciate that. However, for example, in Kirriemuir, in the Brechin Road, coming into Kirriemuir, which is a 20 mile an hour limit, that's been, the speed limit has been broken on numerous occasions. And when we've put in the speed monitoring system, it's come back above, 26, 28, 30 miles per hour. Police Scotland, how do they fit in? Are they being tasked to assist with doing this, particularly in rural areas, where sometimes engineering control measures might not be worthwhile, but the occasional speed camera or policeman out there, so it has a deterrent effect. Perhaps some more assistance from Police Scotland.
Thank you, Councillor Proctor. We officers work closely with Police Scotland through regular catch-ups of the traffic coordination group, and where there are issues, we flag those to Police Scotland. The issue of Police Scotland's enforcement of 20 mile an hour speed limits has been a key theme throughout the member officer working group, concerns over their lack of enforcement. The police's stated position is that they will enforce all speed limits, but they prioritise their resources where risks are higher. And the way that transpires is that is generally not in areas of 20 mile an hour speed limits. The exceptions being close to schools or where there are other vulnerable road users. So officers will continue to work with Police Scotland, and we will continue to pass those concerns on. And what we will also do is focus on what is within our gift. So the likes of the location you mentioned there, if the strategy is approved today, officers will go away and review existing 20 mile an hour speed limits for prioritisation of other measures that Angus Council can implement.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Robertson. It is a bit reassuring. Other two areas in my ward, Charleston Village and on the A94 near Glams, where a very serious occurrence, or could have been quite a fatal occurrence, and sort of took place, and that was just through exceeding the national speed limits in both cases. And, you know, attention there would be gratefully appreciated. Thank you.
One question I have, Matt, is, you know, if it's identified that we need to put in hard measures, do we have funding in place for that to cover that? If you get a big barrel load of, you know, complaints and it's identified that we need that, do we have the funding? And if not, where would we? Is that available externally?
The short answer is that funding is very limited, Councillor Stewart. So there is a capital budget, a capital fund within Angus Council for road safety measures. There is also external funding, the Road Safety Infrastructure Fund. Again, both funds are reasonably limited and have to, prioritisation is across all of Angus and all of Angus's road safety projects. There is, as part of the budget setting underway, I'm aware there is some discussion about potential funding for measures for speed limits. So there are opportunities to review that going forward, but the short answer is that it's pretty limited.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to question, Councillor Duff.
Yes, it's a kind of follow-up from a couple of the questions and answers. So where we've put in temporary physical measures, temporary speed control measures, and I can think of a couple of places where they've been put in, what's the plan now? Are we going to replace them with more permanent measures, or what's the game plan there?
Thank you, Councillor Duff. The team have already started reviewing the existing 20-mile-an-hour speed limits and the measures that are in place through available data, through speed surveys and so forth. So if the strategy is approved today, the team can work further on that with a view to at least bringing back an initial prioritisation within the first annual committee report. So the proposal is to embark on a programme of making temporary permanent. With that limited funding, that is a process that's likely to take a number of years.
Thank you. We'll move to comments. Any comments? Councillor Shepherd.
Thanks, Convener. I just want to thank everybody that took the time to complete the public consultation on this. It really played a big part in kind of steering the direction we took in the MOG. You know, there was a point where you know, I was quite a strong voice where I wasn't keen on the blanket 20s, but there was a very mixed opinion, and that consultation really did feed in and kind of steer where we're at, where I think we got a consensus in the MOG, and, you know, I'm able to support these recommendations today based on what we've come to. But just on the consultation as well, it was around 70% in the area I represent, 70% of Arbroath were against blanket 20s. So I'm also glad that we're having localism, like it's been mentioned already, that we'll have a different approach from Perth and Kinross. And, you know, if that's what the people that we represent want, I think it's only right that we do have a different, you know, it's quite a rural, Angus is a rural area, and there's a lot of journeys to be made. And as long as drivers are sticking to those speed limits, you know, I think this is a sensible, good policy that works well for Angus. And that's the thing that was discussed on the MOG also, is sometimes drivers' behaviour needs to change. That's the biggest one. So please, if you're out there, do stick to the speed limits, you know, because that's the thing that we're needing to work on. So if anyone's listening, do follow the speed limits. We've tried to make it fair, and so you can go about your daily lives. And but the lesson really is the way that drivers' behaviours have to change if we're going to get these targets that are set by national governments, etc. So yeah, thanks to everyone on the MOG for all the work as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Melville.
Thank you again, Convener. Yeah, the reason that I brought up the physical infrastructure in my questions was because I've had a number of people come to me asking for understanding of the council's procedures in that way. And the assurance I was given that it would be included in the MOG. So I'm glad to get that detail today, and I look forward to getting more detail from you in writing as well. Particularly in Wellbank, there seems to be an issue with people just speeding right through it, and physical infrastructure something that I think could be looked at there. But I'm pleased now to have this policy in place. As I said, I'm pleased we're listening to the public in terms of their strength of feeling around blanket 20s, and I look forward to seeing it in practice.
Thank you. Councillor Doran.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with what a lot of the comments that have just been made by Councillor Shepherd and Councillor Melville. And I are in the same ward, so I've discussed lots of issues around speeding in that area. So I'm really pleased that this policy is now going into place, because that allows then the next steps to be taken. And there's certainly areas that I'm interested in being looked at a bit more closely. And so that allows this to happen. And I think this is the best balanced and sensible approach for Angus related to the policy.
Thank you, Councillor Doran. Councillor Gregg.
Thank you, Convener. I completely agree with the recommendations that have been brought forward within the report. I think this is the sensible approach for us to take here in Angus. I've long said that blanket 20 mile/hour speed zones just aren't. It's what's needed. It's the standard of driving that needs to improve. Others have alluded to that as well. So I think what we need to be doing is we need to be working with the police, the Scottish Government and the UK Government to try and increase the standard of driving. With the recent weather that we've just had with fog and snow and things, I'm sure everyone will have seen on Facebook pages the amount of people that are driving about in fog with not even having their dipped headlights on. So whatever signs you put up and things, if people aren't taking notice of that, it's because their driving standard is poor. We need to be looking at graduated driving licences, but that has to be done by the UK Government. So maybe we need to look at what can be done here in Scotland and the things the Scottish Government can do. In England, for example, if you're caught speeding, you have the option of a driver's awareness speed course to do. Perhaps the Scottish Government and the police need to look at making that a mandatory thing if you're caught with a speeding fine, to further the education of drivers and try and improve the standard of driving, rather than just sticking up 20 mile/hour speed limits here, there and everywhere that no one agrees to and no one sticks to.
Thank you, Councillor Gregg. Any further comments? No? Okay, we'll move to the recommendations. It's recommended that this committee 1. Notes the findings of the Angus Council Speed Limit Strategy Member Officer Working Group. 2. Approves the strategy of demand-based speed limit reviews based on industry best practice. And number 3, agrees to the demand-based process for setting new urban or rural speed limits outlined in paragraph 6.4. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Number 6. The Angus Council Speed Limits Variation Order 2026. Submit report number 1226 by the Director of Infrastructure. Is that you again, Matt?
That is me. Thank you, Councillor Stewart. So this report considers objections against making a number of speed limits permanent across Angus. The speed limits themselves are listed in Appendix 1, and the report notes previous committee approval for these speed limits. This is just the process to make those speed limits permanent. I would note one of those was actually a temporary speed limit. Section 5 of the report sets out the statutory consultation process that has been taken. It also sets out and clarifies that the proposals related to the B978 Belumby to Kellis were removed from the proposals but have been included in this report for transparency, and we heard the addendum at the start of the meeting related to some of the specifics of that. There is one unresolved objection noted in the report, and the reasons for officer recommendations are outlined in Appendix 2. So it is recommended that committee note the objections and support for these previously approved variations to speed limits and approves the making of the variation order as republished. Again, we've got Andy Barnes online and happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Duff.
Thanks, convener. I did want to. There's a couple of them that caught my eye, but the one that has been referred to already, which is the B978. I was inclined to say that I know where the bodies are buried on this one, but it's probably not the right analogy. There was an objection came in when the initial legal challenge had been made, but that situation has now been resolved because there was a second DMRC committee which looked at the appeal, took the same decision as the first. That got challenged in the Court of Session, and the Council's position was upheld by the Court. Therefore, that is now the decision. So what's said in this report was a point in time when we had a sort of legal hiatus, but that's now been resolved. So I would say that we should be, whether we can do it today or not, I don't know, but we should be taking the same decision, and we should reduce the speed limit on that road, because the decision of the Council is that planning application can now go ahead. So we need to extend the 40 mile an hour limit from Burlumby Castle to Kellis, which is currently at the national 60 mile an hour speed limit. So I think we maybe have to do that as a separate process, but I think that should be the direction of travel. And I'm pretty sure that the second Development Management Review Committee also made the same recommendation that speed limit should be reduced, because they did the same sort of thing. They looked at all the junctions and the sight lines. I'm sure Mr. Barnes was involved in that, and that was a recommendation of the first review committee. I'm sure the second review committee took the same decision.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. I might bring Mr. Barnes in for any, if he's got any update on that, but my understanding, so apologies, I'm not across the latest of that planning decision, and I won't comment on that. In terms of the process that Roads and Transportation and officers in Angus Council could take for that speed limit going forward, subject to that decision, is it could be included in a future order. My understanding, and I'll seek clarification from Andy, that is an annual process that we would bring that back.
In all fairness, the court decision wasn't handed down until early December, and I'm conscious that papers take time to prepare, so it may be just a timing thing, but I think it is something we should be sorting out properly now.
Any further questions?
Andy, do you have anything to add to that in terms of the timing of taking forward this once the decision is resolved?
Yes, thanks, Matt. I can confirm that the same condition was not placed on the second planning approval. So that's why we've not essentially included it in the proposals at this time. But that said, there's nothing stopping it coming forward in a future variation order.
Thank you. Any further questions? Any comments? Councillor Melville.
Yes, thanks, convener. Pleased to see the recommendations in here that are going to be put to a vote, particularly in my own ward. Some of them are a long time coming, and I mean that literally. The Monifieth Panmure Street one was passed by this committee on the 1st of October 2024. And the one in Kellis was passed, I believe it was 2 years ago last week. Now, I understand that there are statutory processes to follow, but that does seem an incredibly long time to take, particularly when we're talking about an issue as serious as road safety, and in particular on the Kellis one next to a primary school. So I wonder if that's one to take up with the Scottish Government, and I'm not expecting an answer here, but I'm just putting that out there. I think we do need to make sure that we're able to move on issues like this at speed, no pun intended, but to make the safety improvements that are required in as short a time as possible.
Thank you, Councillor Melville. Councillor Proctor.
Colin, thanks very much, Convener. Again, I just like to say I'm pleased to see that the Backwater Road, which is across the dam, which is not just road safety, but it's actually an engineering recommendation that's come through, and also the Brecon Road, which I spoke about earlier on in the previous item. So I'd just like to thank them for that happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Proctor. Any further comments? No? Okay, we'll go to the recommendations. It's recommended that the committee, 1, notes the objections to and support for the previously approved variations to speed limits, and 2, approves the making of the variation order as republished. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Number 7, and we've got the deputation. I've been advised that Mrs. Jolly has got photographs and it's going to be emailed out to members.
I can confirm that's the email sent to members.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Jolly, you've got 10 minutes. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Convener. Good afternoon, everybody. We're looking at Letham, where the aim of the report is that yellow lines will improve visibility and prevent obstructions. And I want to start by agreeing that parking right on the corner of a junction is not usually a good thing. But if you look at the adopted road map that I've marked up, it is more of a bend than a corner. And in practice, it rarely causes serious problems in this location. Where we disagree at 2 points in the report is 1, a statement that there is ample alternative on-street parking on both roads. But we don't agree with that. My photos 1, 2, 3 were taken at lunchtime on Saturday. There was no one in the shop, no trades vans about, and no school-run parking. Both Gardine Street and Dundee Road are residential with lots of private drives and residents parking near their own doors. You rarely see many spare parking spaces other than the empty area where shop customers come and go. The square, about 100 metres away, does provide extra parking. And while I'm still able to carry a couple of bags for 100 metres, the day will come that I won't manage that. A mum with a baby strapped to her chest and a toddler at her feet might take the easy option of driving elsewhere so she can park closer to the door. Keystore can't afford to lose customers. The staff are very good at helping customers load up, but they can't be running up and down to the square. So the suggestion that there is easy alternative parking simply does not exist. The second point we disagree on is that sight lines exiting from the Giveway junction are obstructed by vehicles parked on the inside of the Keystore bend where the double lines are planned. My photograph number 3 shows this quite well. When vehicles park on the opposite side of the road from Keystore, on the actual carriageway of Dundee Road, they do obstruct visibility. But you will see on photo number 2, there are private hard standings in use for parking that don't obstruct sight lines. However, there is a dispute going on about these hard standings, as Angus Council is claiming they are integral to the adopted pavement and have issued fines, but that's not a matter for today. If you look at the road map and photo 3 together, it's important to note that the bend, not exactly a junction, a bend, between Gardine Street and Dundee Road has no white lines, no giveways or stop signs. It is a through road. There is restricted visibility due to the building line. We emphasise that parked cars are not the main problem with visibility. It is the building line. The opposite side of the road from Keystore is where yellow lines should go if we stick with the highway code that says they should be opposite or within 10 metres of a junction That is the T-junction, but I'm not going to nitpick over this because nobody wants accident hotspots. However, I think it is fair to say that most of Letham is concerned that losing 4 parking spaces on the inside curve beside Keystore will push drivers to park on the outside curve, and that will obstruct visibility, it will cause obstructions, and it will raise the risk of accidents. In preparing for this, I googled junctions online and came across the term creep and peep junction. That's what we have to do in much of Letham because we've got lots of narrow roads, narrow pavements, and no pavements whatsoever. Peep and creep, and I think that's the reason there have been no accidents on the Keystore Bend. Obstructions are very rare because locals know to park on only one side of both roads. The locals know that neither of these roads can take two-way traffic. There is regular farm traffic to and from Drummytermont Farm sitting on the edge of the village. Regular wide and long tractor and trailer combinations. Both of these roads are only slightly over 6 metres wide. My car I measured at 2.3 metres wide. Parking cars on the street are wary of hugging the kerb too tightly because it is a very raised kerb where the road surface is higher than the pavement and the house thresholds. So if you measure your parked cars at 2.3 wide, passing cars another 2.3 wide, there's maybe only 1.5 metres of carriageway left. It's definitely not a two-way road. It's only one-way traffic on both sides of the Keystore Bend. I do acknowledge what the report is saying about keeping vehicles on the bend staying in their own lane. This isn't. Drivers exiting Dundee Road, swinging left onto Gardine Street, will not have a clear sightline for any distance at all. There is always curbside parking all the way from Keystore as far as the square. Because of the parked vehicles, a 50-metre length of Gardine Street is a single lane. Two-way traffic has to wait its turn at either end of this. This does actually work because there's a wide section of road beside the square. I've shown that on the photograph. And at the giveaway T-junction beside the Keystore end, we've got a passing place at either end of that. I accept that there is a perceived risk of a head-on collision that can never ever be ruled out, but there is no record of accidents in this section as far as I know. I have never experienced or even witnessed a close shave on this section of road. Because the bend is totally blind and it's only single track traffic, I think drivers are encouraged and it does result in slow moving traffic. We are very alarmed, and I have to express alarmed, that removing the 4 parking spaces to create a wider bend will lead to increased speed. And it is speed that causes accidents, not just poor visibility. As things stand, Letham residents enjoy outstanding services from Keystore, as you can tell from the representations made, and I very much doubt that anyone who complained about parking on the corner will anticipate losing 4 parking spaces. Plus, the farm traffic can get to go about its business with not too much trouble, and you know what they say, if it's not broken, don't try to fix it. Now, apart from the customer parking for the shop, Keystore is open very long hours and the owner's home is integrated with the shop. There is also a neighbour's house that fronts onto Dundee Road, and between these two houses there are probably 4 vehicles that will be affected by the parking ban on Dundee Road. At the very least, we ask you to think about these residents and reduce the length of lines on Dundee Road to the corner only, perhaps just 3 metres on the corner. The 10 metres being proposed in Gardine Street will accommodate 2 spaces that we expect would be taken up more often than not by blue badge drivers. At peak hours, when lunchtime tradesmen stop to use the shop and school run hours see parking in the area because of the school parking exclusion zone, we will not be surprised to see more selfish parking, but unless the police and wardens issue fines, we don't think we can do much about that. The proposed double lines are more likely to cause obstructions than solve them. Efforts to improve visibility will cause increased speed around the bend. This will raise the risk of accidents rather than reduce them. One further important issue is the very narrow pavement at the corner of the Keystore building. I measured it on the way here. It's only 1.2 metres on the ground and much less at roof height where there's an overhang. And I'm told that many years ago, a passing lorry actually took the roof overhang away and demolished the raised kerb. Yellow lines won't protect the building or, more importantly, passing pedestrians, but a parked vehicle on Dundee Road close enough to the bend does give them some protection. I wrote to Angus Council on Friday saying that Mr Dinsa could probably live with a reduced length of yellow lines, because on paper it didn't look to be unreasonable. But that was before I set forth with camera and tape measure on Saturday. I hadn't really looked closely at road widths and sight lines because I'd never had a problem. Now I have looked closely, I really think that many of the points I've raised haven't been fully assessed by the Traffic Coordination Group. Pedestrian safety on the narrow pavement is threatened by vehicles cutting the corner too tight. How will their particular needs be looked into? Mr Dinsa is here to take questions if needed. He says he does not need the yellow lines for easier deliveries, but he does need his working vehicles close to the shop, not 100 metres away. His priority is to give his customers the best service he can, but he also worries for their safety when they're coming and going from his shop. To sum up, I'm saying that there is no record of accidents. We find that a peep and creep junction works quite well. If you must, yellow line the Quay Store bend to the minimum for safety, maybe 5 to 6 metres in total. I've noticed that the junction at Kepty Bakers only has about 3 metres of yellow lines at the corner there where the bus comes and goes. Because of the possible obstructions opposite Quay Store on Gardyne Street, maybe think about yellow lines all along that section, particularly where the passing space is close to the square. On my way here, there were 2 vans parked in that passing, well, it's not a proper passing space, but where it's used as a passing space. We don't really want to encourage vehicles to speed around the bend. Those with children, those with poor mobility, struggling to maintain their independence, and I noticed in 95-year-old letters, as residents, we're looking to Angus Council to solve our problems, not create them. We care about our local businesses, we value them. So Quay Store and Drummy Farm need to be supported in those sort of ways if you possibly can. I've tried not to ramble on, so thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mrs. Jolly. Do we have any questions for Mrs. Jolly? We'll move to the report. Number 7, Angus Council, prohibition and restriction of waiting and loading on street parking, decriminalised enforcement. Number 7, Order 2026. To introduce this, it's Mark again. Thank you.
Thank you, Convener. This report relates to the making of a traffic regulation order for proposed waiting restrictions at various locations throughout Angus. These traffic regulation order waiting restrictions have arisen from requests from members, from residents and from Police Scotland. They are intended to tackle road safety issues across the Angus road network. Requests have been assessed by officers and partners at the Traffic Coordination Group. The group reviews the road safety issue, but also, of course, considers other issues around waiting restrictions related to parking and so forth. So while the group do acknowledge that waiting restrictions can carry constraints and concerns, the officers must advise to make the recommendations today on the grounds of road safety. Mitigation generally, in effect, includes alternative locations for parking and the allowance of loading and blue badge parking on waiting restriction lines. Section 5 of the report sets out the statutory process that has been followed, including the consultation to date. Appendix 2 sets out the objections and support, a summary of that across the waiting restrictions. So today it's recommended that committee notes the objections received during the publication period, notes the comments of officers, and approves the making of the order as proposed. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Do we have any questions? Councillor Meehan.
Thank you, Convener. I'm making, hopefully, a correct assumption that our officers don't put forward proposals to put down yellow lines just off the top of their head. So I'm assuming an assessment has been done, like you say. I wonder if possibly you could talk us through, we talk about safety, and one of my colleagues earlier said the issue of road safety is a serious matter, which I fully agree with. But how do we arrive at this? I mean, somebody must have said, well, I think there's an issue there, before it got to the traffic coordination group, who then, I'm assuming, you'll tell me if I'm wrong, decided that there is actually a safety issue here. Can maybe somebody talk me through that process?
Thank you, Councillor Meehan. So I'll talk you through the process in general terms, unless there's a specific location you'd like me to touch on. But in general terms, the request comes in, as I say, whether it is through members or various other systems within Angus Council, the complaint system, and so forth, or from partners, Police Scotland and otherwise. Those requests are, as you say, they're added to the agenda of the traffic coordination group. That is a group that comprises officers of the council, road safety engineers, as well as Police Scotland colleagues from the education service within Angus Council and other stakeholders. That group meets on a regular basis and discusses all issues. The group will hear an issue first and determine if further data is required to support the request. So that might be a review of crash history or casualty history, or it may be a speed survey that is required for a particular location. Once that data is collected, it will come back to the group for an assessment of the road safety risks with respect to that data and with respect to established industry guidance. The group then makes the recommendation of further actions to be taken, and that's where the order is developed. From there, there's a statutory consultation process which has been followed and is documented in the report.
Thank you for that. So basically what I'm hearing is that there is a form of a professional assessment which is carried out in each of these cases and the decision made. Yeah? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cruikshanks.
Thanks, Convener. Can Mr Robertson confirm whether there is any recorded collision at the Gardyne Street junction in Letham that directly supports the need for weighting restrictions?
I will pass to my colleague Andy Barnes for that. Andy, would you be able to answer that question, please?
Thanks, Mark. Yes, no, I can confirm that there is no recorded accident history at the location. But it's not just accidents that we're considering here, it's just general road safety. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Melville.
I'd like to give notice of an amendment, Convener, if that's all right. I already have it with officers, but I don't know if this is the appropriate moment.
Thank you. Councillor Cowdy.
Thank you. Could you just confirm whether there's speeding concerns on the corner discussed in Letham? Has the speed survey been done and found that there is or isn't a speeding issue there? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cowdy. Again, I'll defer to my colleague Andy Barnes for the detail on that, if I may. Andy.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Cowdy. No, it's not a speeding issue. It is purely road safety. You know, vehicles being forced onto the wrong side of the road, going through a 90-degree blind bend, and on a route to the school as well. Thanks.
Sorry, just a supplementary. So could you just clarify, Andy, if it's not about accidents, what other safety considerations are you talking about? Thank you. I mean, obviously, sorry, when you say accidents, I assume you're including pedestrian accidents in that, but other than that, what safety issues are you talking about? Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Cowdy. So this request came via Police Scotland. They had attended Letham Community Council meetings, and they had a special public community engagement event, which they called Cuppa with a Copper, which they held in Letham in 2023. And they received multiple complaints from members of the public about the safety at this junction, and that's where these proposals arose from. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Cruikshank. You've already had a question.
Sorry, I'd like to give notice of an amendment.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Whiteside.
Thanks, Convener. I had my arm up for a while, and I think Andy's mostly answered my question. I was just wondering how many notices of concern were received before the Traffic Coordination Group had a look at this, but he's replied that it came through Police Scotland.
Thank you. Any further questions? Comments? Councillor Meehan.
No, I think I'll leave that. If there are actually amendments on the table, I'll listen to what the amendments are.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Melville, do you want to speak to you? Do you have a seconder?
Yeah, Councillor Shepherd. My amendment is to approve the making of the order with the exception of the Dundee Road, Gardyne Street, in no waiting at any time. Having listened to the deputation that we have, my personal view, taking account of my own experience of the road as well, is that these restrictions are not merited at this time. However, it can be reviewed at any time in the future.
Thank you. Councillor Shepherd, do you want to add anything to that?
No, just obviously I've taken this decision, take a lot of thought on it, and I just don't want to take the risks or the effects for the key store, given the difficulties with such a small, that's pivotal to the village. So a hard decision, but I want to second the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Cruikshank.
My amendment was exactly the same, so I'm happy to withdraw that.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, would anybody like to move the... Councillor Meehan, you're moving the report.
Move the recommendation as is. I am not a trained roads engineer. I don't know and would have no idea of whether a double yellow line should be put, but I suspect that the Traffic Coordination Group, who are the experts, would know. And their recommendation is that there is actually a safety issue on this corner, then I'm happy to support that recommendation.
Has Councillor Meehan got a seconder for that? Councillor.
Yeah, I mean, for me, if the fact that the police have intervened in this, I think, suggests to me that they think there's a serious issue. I'm not familiar with the location at all. I mean, I know Letham, but I don't know exactly where this is. But I think that the fact that the police have intervened and recommended this to council, I suggest that I would be inclined. That would. I mean, I think the person making the presentation made a good case, but I think the view of the police, in my view, trumps that.
Okay, Councillor. No, you don't want to sum up. No, Councillor Cowdy.
Sorry, is there any more?
Yes.
Yes, just to comment on the police situation, just to say that I've attended Letham Community Council meetings where this has been discussed, and just for clarity, the meetings I've been in, that is not the experience I had, that the majority of people in those meetings were recommending that this happened. It was very much the opposite. So I appreciate the police may have heard this from elsewhere, but I wouldn't say it was in the Letham Community Council meetings I attended. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cowdery. Councillor Proctor.
Thanks, Convener. Just going along with the recommendation, would it be possible to concur with the recommendation with the exception of reducing the no waiting area as per suggested by the person who gave the presentation? Would that be an order?
That would involve
Another amendment.
sort of giving notice of a further amendment,
okay.
Councillor Proctor, depending on what happens with the motion by Councillor Meehan, the amendments by Councillor Melville. So, yeah, that would, if you were wanting to do that, you'd have to advise me of a further amendment. Just
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
We'll see how that.
Councillor Dorn, I noticed you had your hand up, then put it down. It's back up again.
Yeah, yeah, I had it up. Someone asked what my question, and then I've got another one. But actually, I was going to just raise what Councillor Proctor had just said about that that ask, and just to kind of to comment on this as well. The fact that I think it's quite difficult for us to go against a recommendation that's been made by traffic officers as a safety consideration here. Just because if there is an accident that has happened, and this has been flagged as an area of concern, and we have said we don't think yellow lines are needed, then we're going against the expertise there of the traffic officers and the police who have looked at this as well. So I think on that balance, even though we are receiving the report that says that the Community Council have asked for this as well, but people are saying that the Community Council haven't asked for this, which confuses the picture slightly.
Thank you, Councillor Dorn.
Does Councillor Proctor and Councillor Dorn want to give notice of a further amendment, a possible further amendment then, depending on the result? Or
Thanks very much, Fiona. I'd be quite happy to move that we...
It's okay. You just need to give me notice of that. I mean,
okay.
We can see how the vote goes.
All right. Yes, I'll go.
Okay.
Sorry, can I check with our roads expert? I mean, I think there is something like a 10-metre double yellow line. Is it feasible and legal, or whatever, to actually reduce that? Thank you.
I think Mr Robertson wanted to come back in anyway, so if you want to carry on.
Thank you, Convener. If I could maybe respond to a couple of the comments there, and I'll come to that one, Councillor Meehan, on the specific length as well. Just with respect to the request and where this came from, as Andy explained, this was from Police Scotland via the Couple with a Cop. That was a number of members of the public. Andy, I don't know if you've got any further information on the exact form for which that was. I would also highlight, with respect to the road safety issues that we're discussing here, while there is, we've talked about there is no recorded accident history here. This is very much, I would say, about prevention. It's a known risk that has been assessed by Angus Council officers in partnership with the police. This is a known risk that officers have assessed and are making a recommendation that that risk is managed in an appropriate way. I'll come to yourself, Andy. I don't know if you've got any further information on the specific timing of when the request was made with regards to that Couple with a Cop and the relationship with Letham Community Council on that, but also the query about whether it would be feasible to reduce the length of the double yellow lines on the corner.
Thanks, Matt. Yes, so just to confirm, the request first came in from Police Scotland in 2023, so that is the date of the community council meetings, would have been either 2023 or prior to that. That was an unspecified, they termed it multiple complaints from members of the public. It did not specify what that number was. And yes, obviously, if members determine that the length of the lines is reduced from 20 to whatever number, then yeah, that is permissible. Thanks.
Convener, we've got a motion moved by Councillor Meehan, seconded by Councillor Whiteside, that we move the recommendations as per report number 13/26. There's amendment by Councillor Melville, seconded by Councillor Shepherd, that we approve recommendations 1 and 2 of report number 13/26. But in recommendation 3, we approve the making of the order with the exception of Dundee Road, Cardine Street, Latham, so that's the no waiting at any time. So basically the order as it is, with the exception being taken out, the Dundee Road and Cardine Street, Latham one. So if members would vote for the motion, which is the recommendations as per the report.
Can I just clarify with you? Where would it come in regard to if we wanted to reduce the...
Well, I think we'll have to deal with this first. So, members, if you're voting for the motion or amendment, and there's been notice of a further possible amendment depending on the results of this vote. Convener, motion or amendment?
Motion.
Councillor Cruikshanks. Councillor Cowdy.
Amendment.
Councillor Devine.
Motion.
Councillor Duff.
Motion.
Councillor Gall.
Amendment.
Councillor Gregg.
Motion.
Councillor Bell.
Motion.
Councillor Meehan.
Motion.
Councillor Melville.
Amendment.
Councillor Proctor.
Motion.
Councillor Doran.
Motion.
Councillor Shepherd.
Amendment.
And Councillor Whiteside.
Motion.
So that's 9 for the motion and 5 for the amendment. Therefore, that the recommendations in the report are carried. The motion has been carried, but there is further amendment to that now. So we're still dealing with the recommendations now, but we've now got a further amendment. So I need to know now what the further amendment is.
My amendment would be similar to Councillor Melville, but with the exception that I would wish that the restriction order be placed at the minimum length at the corner. As Mr. Barnes said, it was possible that that could be done.
Sorry, could you just repeat? You want a restricted order?
Yeah, at the same corner in Latham, but the double yellow lines be reduced in length to what the minimum safety standard could be.
I think I'm going to bring in Mr. Robinson here. Okay.
Thank you, Convener. Perhaps a couple of points of clarification. So as Mr. Barnes stated earlier, this is possible and feasible. It would be a departure from standards. So the standard is for 10 metres either side. The reduction would be a departure. What that would mean in practice is that some of the safety benefits would be realised, but not all. So the officer recommendation still stands for the full 10 metres as per the standards. I would suggest that we would require to know what the length you're proposing would be as part of the amendment.
Councillor Cruikshanks.
Thanks. I'd like to suggest that we go with what we heard in the deputation, which is 15 metres overall, 10 metres on Gardyne Street and 5 metres on Dundee Road.
Thank you, Councillor Cruikshanks. Councillor Melville.
I would be happy to second that if that was required, convener.
Were you seconding then Councillor Proctor, or is it Councillor? No, you've moved a further amendment, and Councillor Melville seconding you with that it's 10 metres on Gardyne Street and 5 metres on Dundee Road. Is that correct, Matthew? The reduced.
That was my understanding. Andy, I wonder if you have a comment just from the technical road safety engineering perspective of that.
Thanks, Mark. As you state, the 10 metres is the recommended distance that the highway code specifies for weighting restrictions at junctions. So it's difficult for me to say, whether or not 5 metres is acceptable. But that is for the members to determine.
Just to clarify, Mr. Barnes, I think what the members are saying is 10 metres and 5 metres, a total of 15 rather than a total of 20.
Sorry, Councillor Stewart. So that's 10 metres either side of a junction, which is where the 20 metres comes from.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dorn.
Thank you. My question related to one. So the highway code is that you can't park within 10 metres of either side of a junction. So the highway code stands that could be kind of implemented, but you can only enforce the highway code if there's double yellows in place. I just wanted to clarify that with Mr. Barnes based on the comment that you just made. So if we were to put an amendment in that said 10 metres and 5 metres, if cars were parking within that 5 metre zone that isn't double yellows, they'd still be breaking the highway code parking there, technically. But there wouldn't be any enforcement because we wouldn't have yellow lines in place. Is that correct?
That's correct, Councillor. Essentially, the status quo. Cars are parking there at the moment.
Right, my understanding is Councillor Meehan, seconded by Councillor Whiteside, still has the motion, which is to move the recommendations as per report. And my understanding is that would be 20 metres. Andy, could you confirm that in total?
Yes, the proposal is 20 metres in total at the moment.
Then there's a further amendment moved by Councillor Proctor, seconded by Councillor Melville, that basically to again approve the order, the recommendation 3, with the exception of Dundee Road Letham, by restricting the order at the double yellow lines, reducing it to the minimum safety regulations, which is 10 metres on Gardyne Street and 5 metres on Dundee Road. So that would be a total of 15 metres. Is that correct?
I think just the reference to minimum safety regulations would not be correct. So this reduction from any reduction 10 metres is the safety regulations. Any reduction is a departure from standards. And I suppose I would just question that the benefits of reducing the length by 5 metres, that is a departure from officer and road safety recommendations. So I suppose I suppose just questioning what the benefits of that reduction would be.
Councillor Proctor, Councillor Melville, are you happy for the wording to be taken out, reducing the minimum safety? So it would just be basically to approve the order with Cardine Street and Dundee Road, Letham being reduced 10 metres on Cardine Street and 5 metres on Dundee Road. So that's a total of 15 metres. So that would be your further amendment. Is all members clear on what?
Councillor Meehan.
Sorry, just for a clarification, I think I know the answer anyway, but I'm going to ask it. Am I right in thinking that if we went with this amendment and I come along with my car and park on the 5 metre side, hey ho, I could just do what I like and there's no enforcement of it because it doesn't satisfy the criteria for enforcement? Is that correct?
I'll ask if Andy could confirm that, please, for absolute clarity.
So for absolute clarity, the double yellow lines would only be 15 metres long in total. So the 5 metre that you're speaking about wouldn't be enforceable at all. You wouldn't be committing any offence either because there'd be no double yellow line there. Hope that's clear.
Councillor Cowdy.
Sorry, just to be clear, Andy, the 5 metres that had the double yellows on, that would be enforceable. It's the 5 metres that we would be removing the double yellows would not be enforceable. So yes, it would be enforceable on the yellows that if we're backing the amendment proposing. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So I think just to clarify, the amendment is for a double yellow line 15 metres long as opposed to a 20 metre, which is the recommendation from officers. Yeah. And it would be a continuous double yellow line. There's no breaks or anything with it. Thank you.
Right, so as members happy to know what they're voting and the motion being the recommendations, the further amendment being, which is now the amendment, the 15 metres. Okay. Convener, motion or amendment?
Amendment.
Councillor Cruikshanks. Councillor Cowdy. Amendment. Councillor Devine.
Motion.
Councillor Duff.
Motion.
Councillor Gall.
Amendment.
Councillor Gregg.
Motion.
Councillor Bell.
Motion.
Councillor Meehan.
Motion.
Councillor Melville.
Amendment.
Councillor Proctor.
Amendment.
Councillor Doran.
Motion.
Councillor Shepherd.
Amendment.
And Councillor Whiteside.
Motion.
Got 7 votes for the motion and 7 votes for the amendment. Therefore, the convener has the casting vote.
Amendment.
So that's the amendment has therefore been carried.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 8, recycling rate of household and total waste generated. And to bring this report is Mr. Reekie.
Thank you, Convener. Afternoon, members. This report presents information on household waste recycling rates and total waste managed by Angus Council for the period 2020 to 2024. Angus Council remains in the top quartile of Scottish local authorities for household recycling rates. Also, in terms of our carbon impact, it has one of the lowest recorded per capita rates in Scotland. The recycling rate for 2024 was 53.3%, and during 2024, the revised curbside recycling service resulted in an extra 177 tonnes of food waste being collected, and there were also an additional 533 tonnes of wood waste recycled compared to 2023. Also, encouragingly, the amount of household waste being generated in Angus shows a year-on-year decline. So total household waste generated in 2020 was just over 52,000 tonnes, and that has reduced to just over 49,000 tonnes in 2024. Also, we had reported through the Public Bodies Climate Change Duties annual report for 23-24. This was considered at a meeting of Angus Council back on the 7th of September 2024. At that meeting, an additional recommendation was agreed whereby the Director for Infrastructure and Environment would provide annual reports to this committee and obviously detailing the information contained within the report, both for the household recycling rate and total waste generated. In terms of recommendations, in terms of the report, obviously noting the information provided relating to household waste recycling managed by Angus Council for 2020 to 2024, but also recommends that future reports relating to household waste recycling rates and total waste managed are reported as part of the Angus Council annual performance report. And I'm happy to take any questions from members.
Thank you. Councillor Cowdery.
Thank you very much for this report. So I guess this data could be presented in two ways, right? So in the positive sense, we're still in the top quartile, but in the top 5, sorry, but in the negative sense, we're no longer number 1. And when you look at the reasons for the change and the slight reduction in rates, they seem to me to be something that would apply all over Scotland, those kind of reasons. So I guess, could you summarise why you think we're no longer number 1 and we are now number 5? Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Cowdery. I think the report, I would take it in a very sort of positive sense in terms of being in that top quartile. There's obviously good performance both at the household level, obviously through our recycling rates as well. There are a number of factors that can impact recycling rates. It can be geography, it can be deprivation, it can be obviously the services that are provided both at a curbside and locally as well. I think with a number of sort of local authorities, one of the biggest impacts is about the amount of food waste that we find still within the residual waste bin. In areas of Scotland, you're looking at maybe 25% to 30% of food waste still within the residual waste bin. So I think that's a real sort of focus and a real target for us going forward. And I think it was encouraging that obviously the new curbside recycling service has driven more of that material out of the residual bin and into recycling.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Devine.
It was actually a notice of amendment, Convener, very short one.
Thank you. Councillor Proctor.
Hi, Convener. I noticed on the table there we went from sort of the first, the best in Scotland down to 9th, and I see the various phases, but do you think that the change and the way that we recycled materials, whereas at one stage where we were high up, we were putting everything into the grey bin, commingling, and then it was being sorted out in our growth. Now we're separating it at households, curbsides. Do you think that maybe initially had an effect and maybe helped cause that drop in number?
Thanks, Councillor Proctor. I think in terms of the recycling service that we've got, it really follows good practice. It also follows what a number of local authorities are doing throughout the UK. I think what a number of local authorities are recognising is that the more that you separate, obviously the better you're getting in terms of quality. There's less contamination that's actually been added into the mix. Also, you tend to find that you start to hopefully get sort of higher capture rates from the households as well, so that they're actually producing more of that material and putting it within the actual recycling bin rather than the residual bin. So I think we have a service that not only maintains a good position in terms of being in the top quartile, but allows us to hopefully sort of move forward in terms of that in further years.
Supplementary, if I may, Convener. And how would you gauge the success of the glass recycling, where households are responsible for depositing it, as opposed to it being collected?
Thanks, Councillor Proctor. I think that's been hugely positive. I think, as we highlighted in the report, the amount of glass that we're collecting is similar to that as when it was collected at the curbside. Also, as well, feedback from the reprocessors is that the glass is not contaminated. It's good quality glass material as well. So we'll maintain that status quo through that change as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bell.
Thanks, Convener. Thank you, Bruce. That is a really positive message, actually, and I think it's one that the council should be pushing out in the media and the wider world. And it's also an opportunity to be a springboard to keep improving those statistics. And I wondered what plans you might have to do external media, any sort of campaign on communications for these messages. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Bell. I think one of the things that's worked very well has been obviously the sort of drip feed of information and obviously using our sort of social media channels. So not just doing a big sort of campaign. They obviously have their place, particularly when you're doing service changes. But I think that sort of drip feed of good news stories, letting people know and feeding back about how successful some of the schemes have been. And I think obviously putting that out through our social media channels has proven to be successful. So something that we want to continue to develop and obviously deliver on in the coming months and years.
Thank you. Councillor Cruikshank.
Thank you very much. As members and officers might be aware, it was actually my motion from 2024, which means that we're seeing this report today in the format that we are. I am happy for it to be viewed as part of the annual performance report going forward. However, I would like a commitment that the data that we see in the tables today will be presented like that in the annual performance report, as I think it's very useful for members.
Thanks, Councillor Cruikshank. In terms of the annual performance report, I'm very much aware about the amount of information that's contained within that. Obviously, we would be able to provide, I think, probably some of the headline factors that you see in the report today, but obviously I don't think the annual performance report allows us the scope to provide some of the detail that you find in the report before you today.
Sorry, can I just get a supplementary there? So I'm talking specifically about the tables, not the supporting text.
I think if it was just the tables, I believe that could be accommodated within the annual performance report, because you'd obviously want to see that trend analysis as well. Thanks, Councillor Cruikshank.
Okay, I was going to go to comments, but I think Councillor Devine is itching to get her amendment in.
Well, particularly after what Councillor Cruikshanks has said, actually, all I would like to do is delete number 2 recommendation, because I think it is so important that we have a view of this, both the tables and the text. And I just think it's something that we can be proud of, but we need to keep looking at it. Some of the information we've got today about the recycling of food waste is heartening. I mean, 17% increase is really heartening. But I think we want to keep seeing that, and it's also a vehicle for publicity and letting people know that. So that's just my amendment to delete number 2 recommendation. And I've got a seconder here.
Okay, Councillor Melville, do you want to speak?
Yeah, just a second, convener. I think it would be. I think this is too important and too good news to just form part of the annual report. I think it would be good for committee members to be apprised of this regularly in isolation.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Macon.
Yeah. Just for clarification, am I correct in saying that the suggestion is that this stands alone, so we get this in this type of format? Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further questions? No comments? Councillor Whiteside.
Thanks. Yeah, I think it is a really good news story, and I'll be supporting the amendment for that reason. I think it's maybe worth pointing out to Councillor Proctor that when we did drop to 9th in 2022, we're still collecting the mixed recycling, and the fact that we've had such a huge service change and yet we are rising up the table again, I think is amazing, actually. So congratulations to everybody who's been involved. And yeah, I would like to see this reported and hitting the news, and so that we can keep track of it going forward.
Thanks very much, Convener. Yeah, I'd just like to congratulate the team as well. I think back up into number 2, and I'm sure we'll be heading towards number 1 in Scotland once again. So thank you and your team for all that they do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to confirm that I'm back in the amendment, and I thank Councillor Devine for bringing it forward.
Sorry to come back in, but just to say I will also be supporting the amendment.
The live stream, please, for communities, please. Convener, I don't know if we want to clarify in the break. We've had a discussion regarding Councillor Devine's amendment. Councillor Devine, regarding deleting recommendation 2, recommendation 2 would stay in but be amended. That agrees that future reports relating to household waste recycling rates and total waste management will continue to be reported to the Communities Committee as per report 33324. So you're happy with your amendment being that, seconded by Councillor Melville.
Okay, is there any further comments in regards to this report? Okay, I'm going to move the motion. It is recommended that this committee notes the information provided relating to household waste and recycling rates and total waste management by Angus Council from 2020 to 2024. And number 2, agrees that future reports relating to household waste recycling rates and total waste managed form part of the Angus Council Annual Performance Report. And
have you got a seconder?
I have a seconder for that. Councillor Meehan.
So we've got a motion moved by the convener, seconded by Councillor Meehan, that we move the recommendations as per the report for report 1426 as per in the report. The amendment moved by Councillor Devine, seconded by Councillor Melville, is to recommendation 1 as is in the report, but recommendation 2 agrees that future reports relating to household waste recycling rates and total waste management will continue to be reported to the Communities Committee as per report 333/24. So you're voting for motion or amendment. Convener?
Motion.
Councillor Cruikshanks?
Amendment.
Councillor Cowdy? Councillor Devine?
Amendment.
Councillor Duff?
Amendment.
Councillor Gall?
Amendment.
Councillor Gregg?
Motion.
Councillor Bell?
Amendment.
Councillor Meehan?
Motion.
Councillor Melville?
Amendment.
Councillor Proctor?
Amendment.
Councillor Doran?
Amendment.
Councillor Shepherd?
Amendment.
And Councillor Whiteside.
Amendment.
There's 4 for the motion and 10 for the amendment. Therefore, the amendment is carried.
Thank you. We'll move on to agenda item number 9 and commercial waste collection and disposal charges. And to introduce this report is Bruce again.
Thanks, Convener. This report brings forward proposals for adjusting the charges levied for the Council for the collection and disposal of commercial waste for the period 2026-27. These charges are proposed separately from the Council's budget setting process, just due to the timing of notifying commercial customers of the charges for that period. All the bins are charged per Harbour Protection Committee. A charity, voluntary or youth groups should have a single bin collected without a charge. A charge is only applied where additional bins are required to be collected. The proposed charges reflect the total cost to the Council for collection, processing and disposal of the waste and recyclables that we collect through the Commercial Waste Service. Following a review of our costs, a base increase of 5% has been applied to the charges in Appendix 1, and that would be applied to the collection costs across the services. This increase obviously reflects inflationary pressures on service costs, materials, supplies and other expenditure. The approaches outlined in the report aim to recover all costs involved in waste collection and disposal, but obviously at the same time we want to ensure that we're providing a competitive price for our commercial waste customers throughout Angus. The report therefore recommends that the committee agrees to the introduction of charges for 2026-27 as detailed in Appendix 1. And again, happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions? No? Any comments? Good. Okay. Is recommended that the committee agrees to the introduction of the charges for 2026-2027 as detailed in Appendix 1. Is that agreed? Thank you. Agenda item number 10, Arbroath Harbour, the annual duty holder report 2025. And to introduce this, I think we've got Bruce Fleming online. Yep.
Thank you, Convener. I'll introduce this, and we've got Bruce Fleming, the Arbroath Harbour Master, online for any questions.
Thank you.
This report presents the updated marine safety management system for Arbroath Harbour, as well as the results of the 2025 Port and Marine Facilities Safety Code audit. So Angus Council is the statutory harbour authority for the Arbroath Harbour. The Communities Committee is the duty holder under the Port and Marine Facilities Safety Code, and that code sets out best practice for operating harbours. The Marine Safety Management System itself sets out how Angus Council, how the Harbour Authority will operate the harbour safely. So the results of the audit under the Port and Marine Facilities Safety Code resulted, we had 131 satisfactory components, 11 recommendations or observations, and 0 non-compliances. And a number of areas of good practice noted, including the upcoming investment in the harbour infrastructure. It is recommended that the committee approve the updated marine safety management system, note the results of the Port and Marine Facilities Safety Code audit, and delegate authority to the Director of Infrastructure and Environment to complete the online compliance statement, accompanied by a letter from the convener. Thank you, and Bruce and I are happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Councillor Devine.
Thanks, Convener. I was just wondering if you have a timeline for the slipway and the harbour wall. It would be good to have an outline, because I was on a visit, I think it must have been about 18 months ago, 2 years ago, and we were talking about it then. It'd be good to know about this.
Thank you, Councillor Devine. So we have a capital budget allocated in the capital plan for a number of repairs, as you mentioned. There's the slipway cradle, replacement of the dock gate, the inner harbour gates, as well as ongoing infrastructure repairs. So the ongoing infrastructure repairs, that's an ongoing budget for repairs as required. The dock gates and the slipway cradle are programmed. We're currently working through procurement of that, programmed in the next financial year and the year after that as well, next 2 financial years.
Thank you. Any more questions? Comments? Councillor Cowdy.
Thank you very much. So I'm the chair of the Arbroath Harbour Subcommittee within the council, and Thank you very much for this report, and I wanted to really highlight how positive it is. We've got zero non-compliance in what is, I know, to be a very challenging set of circumstances and environment and infrastructure. And I think that's not to be downplayed. I think this is a really good reflection on Bruce and all his team. I know Bruce is retiring this year in April after many years in service with Angus Council. So thank you very, very much, and I wish him all the very best.
Thank you very much. Councillor Devine.
Yes, I was also going to say how good a report it is, 131 very positive comments, and yeah, that's really good. I just feel so bad that I couldn't attend. On page 290, it's saying that some of us weren't at the training in October, and I regret that, but I was at another meeting that day, and so I'm hoping that when something is replanned, because obviously we need to, it would be good if our diaries could be considered for another training. Thank you very much. But thank you very much, Bruce, for your hard work, and I mean, your service has been absolutely wonderful over the years. Thank you. All the best in your retirement.
Thank you, Councillor Devine. Councillor Proctor.
Thank you very much, Convener. I'd just like to congratulate Mr Fleming and his team on achieving this actually excellent report. And it's actually great to see, if you look in the harbour origins, there's actually been a harbour growth since 1194, and it's still going strong. I remember as a boy going to Arbroath, and you couldn't see one end of the harbour for the other for fishing boats. Of course, these times have changed, but it's still a very active and very popular place, and I wish them well for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Proctor. Councillor Shepherd.
Thanks, Convener. Yeah, as part of this audit, I was interviewed myself as I'm on Communities and the Harbour Committee, so I'm glad to see that you know, the report's come back okay. And with Bruce retiring, I think it's one, we're kind of used to these good reports coming, so I would ask everyone that sits on the Harbour Committee, particularly, but also Communities, to be particularly, let's just keep our eyes sharp on that transition period, which we're doing at the moment anyway, because you know, there will be a bit of change there, and that's a time for us to be particularly vigilant. And that did come up as part of that interview, so you know, very pleased with the report, and let's hope Arbroath continues to be a good working and tourist harbour. You know, it's important to keep those two dual aspects going. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Shepherd. Any further comments? No? Okay, we'll go to the recommendations. It's recommended that the committee approve the updated marine safety management system, which is in place for Arbroath Harbour and forms an integral part of the safe operations of Arbroath Harbour and the audit process. Number 2, note the results of the Port and Marine Facilities Safety Code audit, including observations, recommendations and areas of good practice identified. And number 3, delegate authority to the Director of Infrastructure and Environment to complete the online Port and Marine Facilities Safety Code compliance statement on behalf of the duty holder and submit to the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency, accompanied with a letter from the duty holder signed by the convener of the Communities Committee before the deadline of 31st of March 2026. Is this agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Agenda item number 12, it's the South Links Holiday Park Montrose fees and charges for 2026 season. And to introduce this is Mr. Reekie again.
Thanks, Convener. This report brings forward proposals for adjusting fees and charges levied by the Council at the South Links Holiday Park in Montrose. These charges have been presented separately from the Council's budget setting process due to the timing of the leases and implementation of the charges for the 26-27 season. The majority of fees and charges are proposed to increase by 4%, which is broadly in line with the UK's RPI inflation rate, and also include proposed charges for 11, 12 and 13-month annual leases. The reason for this was obviously at the Angus Council Communities Committee back on the 11th of November last year. It was agreed to implement both 11 and 12-month annual leases, thus making the site residential in part and open all year to residents. To allow that transition to happen to a 12-month residency for the 26-27 season, allowances had to be made in the charging for both 11, 12 and 13-month leases. The only charges that have been subject to an above inflation increase are those associated with camping pitches. It's been recognised that the bookings that we get for camping pitches are predominantly for larger tents with multiple occupants and obviously requiring an electrical hookup as well. So the price per night has been increased to take those factors into account. So the report therefore recommends that the committee agrees to the application of the fees and charges for 26-27 as detailed in Appendix 1 and agrees that the fees and charges are reported to the Communities Committee on an annual basis at the start of each calendar year. And happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Meehan.
Thank you, Convener. Just on the charge for a tent, from £23.65 to £34. Now, you say that it's been noticed that a lot of the tents are larger tents. Is there then a suggestion in here that a smaller tent's cheaper?
No, I think what we're tending to find, Councillor Meehan, is that when we've got camping pitches coming through, tend to be the sort of larger sort of scale tents. They've got sort of bigger groups of people as well, so therefore there's greater use of the sort of facilities on site. Also as well, those types of tents usually come with the electrical hookup as well. So hence the reason that we're looking to increase the charge, so it's more akin to a touring type pitch fee that we're going to put in there.
So the answer is, if I come with a smaller tent, I'm not getting a smaller charge. I'm going to get the full charge.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Meehan. Yeah, in terms of, for example, if you've got a backpacker tent or a smaller tent, there is a lower charge there as well. That's just in at £13.50 per night.
But that's with no car. I'd be walking in for that, yeah.
You can walk in, obviously as well. If you do have a car as well, there is one charge. One car is permitted. Additional cars are obviously charged at £4.50 per night.
Thank you. Any more questions? Comments? Councillor Duff.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. Really just, I think this is obviously it's really good to see that we're offering the 11 and 12-month arrangements. That is a satisfactory conclusion for a long-running saga, and which goes back many, many years. So it's really good to see that we've finally sorted that out. I think it's a win-win for the council and for the residents, many who want to stay there permanently. It also increases the income from the council that we're getting a 12-month rent rather than 11, and I think we're also getting council tax paid as well. So that is a good result, I think. Well done.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. I would just like to extend my thanks to the officers for getting this one over the line this year in time for the people that are staying there just now, where they're going to be able to continue without having to leave for a month this year. Councillor Gall.
Thank you, Convener. Just to echo Councillor Duff and Councillor Stewart's comments, and also I know Angus Council is not in the business of caravan park operations, but it is a credit to the council. It's a really nice, clean site. It's a good benefit to Montrose, and now with the new arrangements for permanent accommodation, there's a huge win-win for everyone. So this is a good outcome, and hopefully the site continues to go from strength to strength. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further comments? Nope. Okay, we'll go to the recommendations. It's recommended that the committee, number 1, agrees to the application of the fees and charges for 2026-27 as detailed in Appendix 1, and number 2, agrees that the fees and charges are reported to the Communities Committee on an annual basis at the start of each calendar year. Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Agenda item number 12, Angus Alive Annual Report for the period 1st of April 2024 to 31st of March 2025. And to introduce this is Alison Watson.
Thank you, Convener, and good afternoon, members. This report presents Angus Alive's annual report for 2024-25 for noting in relation to the services provided by Angus Alive on behalf of the Council. The report attached at Appendix 1 highlights Angus Alive's key developments during 24-25 and illustrates the contribution made to achieving Angus Alive's strategic aims, as well as a financial overview. Section 5.4 of the report highlights some key points for noting. Kirsty Hunter, the Chief Executive of Angus Alive, was due to be here today to take you through the report and to answer any questions, but unfortunately and unexpectedly she can't be here anymore. If there are any questions, then I'm happy to take them to Kirsty and colleagues at Angus Alive and come back to you. Members will note that committee is asked to note your role as strategic oversight of the services being delivered by Angus Alive and to review and note the annual report at Appendix 1. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Councillor Shepherd.
I think some of our political group had questions for Kirsty, but would it be better just to delay the report that she's not here today to give it proper scrutiny?
If members reminded to do that, there is no time implication. So this is simply an annual report for noting by committee. It doesn't have anywhere else to go in the process. So that would be open to members today if that was the preference. It could be deferred to the next cycle if that was the preference.
Seconded by Councillor Cowdery. Councillor Bell.
That is a really good idea. I think it's an excellent report. And I would certainly like that to be fed back in the meantime. There's a lot of really good information in it, but I do think having it brought back so that we could have, tease out more of the detail would be fantastic. So I really support that. Thanks.
Well, does anybody have any objections to this being delayed? No. Okay, is that agreed? Agreed. Item number 13, Angus Alive, change request in relation to Montrose Basin Nature Reserve proposal to stop Countryside Ranger service. Ms Watson.
Thank you, Convener. This report presents a change request from Angus Alive for consideration by committee. Angus Alive have formally requested to remove the requirement for them to deliver a Countryside Ranger service at Montrose Basin Local Nature Reserve. This would enable Angus Alive to focus their reduced countryside adventure workforce on operating the remaining sites at the country parks, Maniki, Crombie and Forfar Loch. This proposal was previously agreed at the Council's budget setting meeting in March 2023, subject to Angus Alive adhering to the change process within the SLA. Work has been ongoing with Angus Alive to refine the proposals in relation to Montrose Basin. A separate change request was previously approved, enabling Angus Alive to cease the operating and managing the wildfowling permitting scheme, and that is now being undertaken in-house within the Council. Angus Alive submitted their revised change request in relation to the Ranger service in December last year. It's attached to this report at Annex 1, and members are asked to consider that change request and determine whether or not the Council approves it or goes back to Angus Alive seeking further information. On the call today is Jill Patterson, who can assist me in any questions on the operational matters in relation to that, but happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Do you have any questions? Councillor Macon.
Yeah, just for clarity, the Ranger service, as I understand, hasn't actually been staffed for, a couple of years now. With Angus Alive withdrawing from this, then I presume then it's up to Angus Council for any future decision on what we're going to do with that service. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Meehan. So yeah, also within the recommendation 3 is looking for approval to agree a strategic review of the Countryside Ranger service. That would be undertaken by Angus Council as set out in paragraph 6.4, and that would be looking at all of the service across the whole of Angus to determine the best way to deliver that. And one of those options may be to then go back to Angus Alive, requiring a refined service to be provided by them. So it's not completely ruling that out. It's formally removing it from the SLA at the moment, which reflects what's been happening, as you say, in practice, but giving an opportunity for it to be reviewed across each of the sites to find the best option.
Just on that, is there a timeline for that, or is that to be decided?
I think that, as far as I know, but I could bring in Jill Patterson on that if Jill could come in.
Thank you, Councillor Meehan. So, as my colleague Ms Watson has outlined, the report does include that provision to do a strategic review, and part of that is to really look at the role of what a ranger service undertakes in terms of the specific focus around educational elements and management of the natural environment. So at the moment, we don't have a specific timeline for that. It's likely to involve a number of parties because it is obviously the ranger service sits within Angus Alive. There's functions within my own team on the natural environment side in terms of biodiversity that rely on some of the support provided by that. And also, I think yourselves as elected members would want to be involved in that service review to look at what type of ranger provision does the Council in Angus Alive want to offer, who is best placed to deliver on that, and what key functions should dictate the priorities for that, and potentially looking at external funding to support some of that activity. So probably a realistic guideline, just looking at involvement in terms of the practical side. I think there'd be a good focus within the next 9 to 12 months about the specifics of the service. I think the timeline around some of the HR elements in terms of staffing would need to follow on from that. So I suggest probably a 2-phase process, that we potentially look and bring a paper back about forming a small working group with elected member involvement to start and shape that activity, and then to, depending on the outcome of that particular exercise, there's a second phase that then looks at the practical arrangements thereafter.
Thank you, Councillor Duff.
Thanks, Convener. I suppose I had a couple of questions. The first question really is, I'm aware that we are looking at the, if you like, the contractual side of how the basin is managed, and that's been an ongoing activity for some years, and we haven't reached a resolution there. So I think I would like an update on that, and perhaps maybe a wee bit of a timeline on that. In terms of I mean, I was aware that the Angus Alive Ranger had been effectively removed from the basin some time ago. My understanding at the time was that the council was looking at backfilling that position, and I remember hearing that we were looking at potential funding sources for that. So obviously that hasn't transpired. I just wonder if was my understanding incorrect there or not.
Jill, will I let you come in on that? Thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to pick that up. So just on your first point around the contractual arrangement, so you're correct, Councillor Duff, that there was quite a bit of work done in relation to the contractual requirements. Obviously, the designation as a local nature reserve was back in 1981, and there are a number of benefits in terms of having that designation in place, particularly in relation to a lot of our biodiversity duties and providing that framework for that. The specific challenges are around changes in land ownership during that period. So the legal service have been doing quite a bit of work in relation to that, and just a change in staffing meant we were unable to conclude that exercise. It's difficult to really set out a timeline for that just because of the complexities in land ownership, particularly in ensuring the sheer myriad of landowners in and around the basin, and the practical aspects of actually what they're signing up to, getting agreements on that, and looking in as a comparator to that in terms of what that means for the local nature reserve status and that legally binding framework in relation to that. So specifically, there's things around if you've got a majority of landowners, is that good enough in terms of supporting that framework for biodiversity? Or would it need to be further on that? So I'm unable to provide a specific timeline, but just to reassure you that we will be picking that up again just with some of the changes in staffing, because a lot of the paperwork is so old, it's quite complex to work through. On the second one, just around the ranger provision, so the wild fowling element was largely the function carried about by Angus Alive. So whilst there was ranger support, it was largely to do the wildfowl wardling. Since that has come back in-house, that's come into my team, and we've been able to secure a wildfowling warden, which is paid for through the permits, and we've effectively worked out on this year, which is the first year we've employed our own wildfowling warden to get that as a cost neutral for the current wildfowling season, which is due to end in a few weeks' time. The intention going forward is to look at some of the work we are doing within the biodiversity space and to see if there's any scope to enhance some of that provision to secure that as a year-round post rather than a seasonal-only post, or to support the wildfowling wardening activity with some ranger provision to support that provided by the Scottish Wildlife Trust, which was done a number of years ago. I mean, the specifics around sort of why you would do that is really the international importance of the Montrose Basin, the number of designations that it carries, and a lot of the species that are at the basin. And it really supports a lot of our statutory duty in relation to biodiversity. And we've got a number of projects that we work quite closely with the Scottish Wildlife Trust to support activity in and around the basin. So it's not off the table, it's just looking at what's cost effective in terms of, we've got through the first phase, which is the income generated through the permits can support at the very minimum the wardening activity, and we're now looking at the next stage of that, which will feed into the strategic review of rangers as well.
Thank you. Any further questions? Any comments? Nope. Okay, we'll go to the recommendations. It's recommended that number 1, we note the decision of Council on the 2nd of March 2023 to agree to remove Montrose Basin from the Angus Alive specification, subject to Angus Alive adhering to the change process already agreed. Number 2, notes the work done to refine the proposal and considers the change request submitted to the Council by Angus Alive on the 18th of December 2025, attached at Annex 1, in which it is formally requested that Angus Alive cease to operate a countryside ranger service from Montrose Basin Nature Reserve and focus resources on other sites. Number 3, notes the comments from officers contained in this report regarding Angus Alive ceasing to operate a countryside ranger service from Montrose Basin Nature Reserve, and agrees that a strategic review of countryside ranger services be undertaken across the Angus area as set out in paragraph 6.4. Number 4, determines whether or not to approve the change request submitted by Angus Alive, or go back to Angus Alive to request further information.
So I think we'd have to be clear on that whenever we're approving that recommendation. I take it we're approving that recommendation. Convener, you're not wanting to go back to Angus Alive. So we'll just confirm the committee has agreed to approve the change request.
Okay.
Okay.
And 5, delegates authority to the Acting Director of Legal and Democratic to notify Angus Alive of the decision of this committee. Is that agreed? Thank you. Number 14, Angus Alive change requests. Alternative proposals for the countryside ranger service at Glendall, an alternative use of the ranger base. And that is Mrs. Watson again.
Thank you, Convener. This report presents 2 related change requests submitted by Angus Alive. The first request is in respect of the countryside ranger service that Angus Alive currently provide from the Glendall Ranger Base. And secondly, a change request that the ranger base would be handed back to the building if Angus Alive can cease delivery of the service. So looking at that in two parts. In relation to this change request, Cairngorms National Park Authority have decided to retain the funding that they give to Angus Alive for delivery of the service, and they have proposed providing that service themselves as detailed within Annex number 4. Yeah. So it's detailed within the report the alternative service that will be provided by Cairngorms National Park directly. They operate at the ranger base at Glendall, not using the ranger base, as well as Forestry and Land Scotland. Angus Alive are proposing, due to the alternative ranger model being offered by the Cairngorms, to remove the requirement from SLA with the council, and also to hand back the building to the council in the event that that was to be agreed. As you'll see from within the report, there is potential for the Cairngorms National Park to provide significant added value through dedicated resources for the Angus Glens area, increased resilience, and the potential to support and strengthen partnership activity. Again, Ms Patterson's on the call to take any questions. Thank you.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Convener. Thanks, Alison. I had an opportunity to have a meeting with Kirsty a few months ago about this when it was first being mooted, and she was able to address my concerns, and I'm comfortable around supporting the CNPA proposals there. My question is around the future of the ranger base. I know conversations are on the go to keep the Lewes open, which I think is really important for visitors to the area. But FLS is currently commissioning Scottish Land Commission to do some engagement work with the community in the area around their scope, if you like. And I just wonder if there's an opportunity to integrate a discussion with the community more fully and engage with the community around any possible community use or aspirations for the ranger base, rather than just simply tick a box and hand it back to the council. I think it makes sense for me and the wider area. I mean, the community council in the area are aware that this is on the cards. And I was part of a meeting a couple of weeks ago about this. So it makes sense to join the dots on it, to look at what's possible. I don't think it's enough to say FLS don't want it, Angus Alive doesn't want it, council is getting it back, but there's nothing on the cards. So could we pick that up following this meeting with relevant officers to take that forward with CNPA and FLS perhaps? Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Yes, absolutely. In terms of the current report, it's obviously just to decide on the change request from Angus Alive, which is within the remit of Communities Committee, and then any future use of the building, absolutely including that consultation with partners, and would then form a report that we go to Policy and Resources Committee. So that would all absolutely be taken on board. And I don't know if Jill wants to add anything into that, but certainly that would be looked at within the option. The report at paragraph 6.10 does detail that economic development have expressed an interest in taking on the building, and certainly would be looking at those various options of working with the existing organisations that are there and with the community. And as I say, that would be brought to Policy and Resources Committee.
Thank you, Councillor Cowdy. Much a comment. Okay, Councillor Meehan.
Thank you, Convener. When I actually read the title, I was a little bit taken aback at the alternative proposal for Countryside Ranger Service Signal an alternative use of ranger base. I was thinking, oh, what's the alternative use? Where there isn't one. But just to be clear and to make it clear, if you could, Any decision, if this returns to Angus Council, any decision on the future of this building will be for Angus Council. Now, we may discuss that with other groups and so on, or we may decide, well, we want to actually leave it as a Rangers base, but that'll be a decision made by Angus Council, correct?
Yes, that's correct, and specifically by Policy and Resources Committee.
Thank you. Councillor Proctor.
Thanks, Convener. Just on the back of what Councillor Meehan said, I actually visit that area quite regularly and have used the base from time to time. I think the question I was going to ask you was about the future, about the Ranger base, and you've more or less answered that. And I just hope that, you know, we can manage to come to some agreement to keep that building. I was there as the chairman of Kirriemuir Community Council when it opened many, many moons ago. It's a well-used facility. It's welcome. It's got toilets that are absolutely necessary and to be kept open and maintained. And I just hope and feel that we can find a way of continuing the use of that very important building. Thank you.
Councillor Devine.
Yeah, I'm on the board of Angus Alive, and we had discussed at one point perhaps looking at some of the information that is within the centre there and putting it into really nice information boards, which you find all over the place with all the flora and fauna that is available in the area, to still be an information point. And I'm hoping that that can be taken forward as well. I know that's not really a question.
Okay. Move to comments. Councillor Cowdery.
Thank you. I noticed in the Angus Live annual report that I'm listed as the director of Angus Live, but just for clarity, I am no longer a director. I quit as a director over this issue of them handing back the Ranger Centre. I am relatively comfortable with the Ranger service being moved to an alternative provider from my perspective. I just want the best Rangers out there. And whoever's providing that, I'm relatively comfortable with that if they can assure me of the quality of the service. But I'm really disappointed that Angus Alive couldn't see a use for this building going forwards, perhaps find some investment to keep it as a centre and run it alongside what Cairngorms is proposing. I feel a physical base is really, really important in that area for the toilet provision people have talked about, for the engagement opportunities with new people. Interpretation boards do something, but they don't provide that central hub, people walking in, maybe educational opportunities, and also being a physical point of contact and a sanctuary if people get in trouble up in the Glens. So I know we can't stop Angus Alive handing this facility back to us, but I will be in future meetings pressing very, very strongly for this to maintain a physical base there as a nature-focused educational centre. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Cowdery. Any further comments? Councillor Whiteside.
Thank you. I think it actually makes total sense for the Cairngorms to take over the Ranger service based on geography, apart from anything else. And I think that the council taking over the building creates opportunities, and I'm sure we can find a good use for it going forward. So I'm supportive of the report. I think perhaps it's just a timing issue. The directors in the annual report, it depends on the date of the report, etc.
Thank you very much, Councillor Whiteside. Okay, we'll move to the recommendations. It's recommended that number one, the committee notes that Cairngorms National Park Authority are stopping their funding to Angus Alive to operate a countryside ranger service from Glendall Ranger Base, and that an alternative ranger service as detailed in Annex 4 will be provided thereby by the CNPA, Cairngorms National Park Authority, from the 1st April 2026, utilising the funding previously provided to Angus Alive. Number two, considers the change request submitted to the Council by Angus Alive on the 29th of September 2025, attached to Annex 1, in which it is requested that Angus Alive cease to operate the Countryside Ranger Service from Glendall Ranger Base and remove it from the specification in the service level agreement, given that they will no longer be in receipt of the external funding and CNPA will now be delivering that service. Number 3, notes the comments from officers contained in this report regarding Angus Alive ceasing to operate a Countryside Ranger service from Glendall Ranger Base. Number 4, to approve the change request attached to Annex 1. Number 5, considers the further change request submitted to the Council by Angus Alive on the 29th of September 2025, attached to Annex 2, in which it is requested that Angus Alive return the Glendall Ranger Base building to Angus Council's building portfolio. Number 6, notes the comments from officers contained in this report regarding Angus Alive returning the Glendall Ranger Base building to Angus Council's building portfolio. Number 7, to approve the change request attached to Annex 2. And lastly, number 8, delegates authority to the Acting Director of Legal and Democratic to notify Angus Alive of the decision of the committee in respect to the two change requests. Is that agreed? Thank you.
That concludes the public business for today. So could you please stop the live stream?